Okay, welcome back to HISD Unscripted. We haven't had one of these in a while. We've been a little busy with the start of school, but we're excited to jump back in and continue to have great conversations on here. So my name is Kara Esquivel, and today I'm joined with...
Hi, my name is David Faltys.
So today we're going to bring back the ongoing conversation about the upcoming VATRE election this November. So David, tell me a little bit about yourself. You know, we had a podcast with you a little bit earlier this summer, but just kind of talk about yourself, what your role is with the VATRE election in our district.
Sure, thank you. Well, as I said, my name is David Faltys, and I am a financial advisor with Government Capital Securities. We've been the district's financial advisor for a couple of years now. I am also a retired school superintendent. I was a school superintendent for 18 years and was in education for a total of 33 years. And while I was a superintendent, we went through four bond programs and a tax ratification election. And so I became very familiar with the bond process and how all this worked, and have been working with, several dozen districts around the state as a financial advisor in the last 4.5 years.
Well, we're happy to have you working for us or working with us and just, bringing your wealth of knowledge to our district as we try to, just go out for this VATRE election and, just the whole process, because it can be a little overwhelming at times.
Yes, it can.
So Hereford ISD officially called the VATRE on August 18th at our board meeting. We received the official ballot wording just a couple days ago. And, ballots can tend to be a little confusing at times. So let's just kind of go over the wording so our community knows, what they're voting for, what this means, and what it looks like for them and for our school district.
Sure. The ballots are very confusing. They are legislatively driven by laws, if you will. And the laws don't always consider that school finance is a little bit of a moving target. You could nearly call this conversation today "School Finance is Hard," because it is very, very difficult. And so the ballot language, when a voter goes in to vote, they're going to see this total tax rate that they're voting for. It doesn't show the 3 cents separate. It's a total tax rate. And then it says, there's an amount on here that says, based on what we earned last year, we will generate another $1.137 million in some change. And as the district's been putting out information that these 3 cents are worth 1.9, nearly $2 million, that can be confusing for people. And the one thing that I would say is that the 1.1 million that's on the ballot and the numbers we've been talking about are nearly apples and oranges, because it's a different fiscal year, it's a different calculation. The 1.1 million that's on the ballot, again, is driven legislatively based on a very simple formula of what the district generated last year with last year's taxable values versus this year with last year's taxable values. Well, none of our math considers last year's taxable values because we're living in this year. But legislatively, that's how the rules are written. The other thing that it doesn't consider are the formulas. And so whereas the district's been putting out information that about 70% of this new money with these golden pennies is going to come from state aid, which is true, that's not considered on the ballot because it doesn't calculate formulas. It uses a very simple equation from last year. And so it really makes it difficult for a taxpayer. But for the district, for all practical purposes, they will generate an additional $1.996 million with these 3 new cents. Remember, that doesn't consider state funding. That doesn't consider other things on the ballot language. So we just don't want people to be confused. We want to be as open and transparent as we possibly can, understanding that it's complicated.
So something that we kind of discussed a little before the podcast was, some of those different formulas that'll be plugged in are things like at risk, our bilingual, our SPED programs, things like that we have in our district. And so, whenever our community is like, well, why is there such a big difference? Just know that we have those programs and just all that
Correct.
Isn't plugged in, basically.
Correct. No, all those things aren't taken into consideration because we understand that not every child, different kids need to be educated in different ways. And the state has a recognition for that and assigns different amounts or values to kids with differing needs. The ballot language doesn't take that into consideration. It uses a very simple formula to calculate it. And again, that number nearly doesn't relate to the number that we're calculating now. It has to be on there.
So bottom line, our community just needs to know that even though it says 1.1 1.37 on here, it'll really generate 1.9 something
Absolutely.
something.
Absolutely. And the exciting part about that is 70% of that 1.9 million is coming from the state, not even locally. So this is an opportunity to take advantage of a formula to where the state's going to pay for 71% of this new money. It's not reflected on the ballot, but that's how it's going to work for the district. So that's a great thing for Hereford ISD.
Yes, and it's always great whenever the actual number is a little higher than what it says on there. So.
Absolutely. But it is confusing, and we know that's confusing, but we don't want anybody to walk in and go, wait a minute, the district said. So hopefully they'll have an opportunity to listen to this podcast, and you guys are doing a great job getting information out.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So a question that we've also had on the ballot is if they're voting for or against, like which way are they actually going?
Well, that's a great question. They are voting for the new tax rate, the 0.8061, which is the total new M&O tax rate.
Okay, so if you want this to pass, you want to vote for, and if you don't agree with this or you don't want it to pass, vote against. It'll be exactly how it sounds. There's no trickery in this one this year. So
now, hopefully that won't confuse people. You know, sometimes they do sound opposite, but this one is pretty straightforward. To approve that new tax rate with the new cents would be a vote for, a favor.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So let's just talk about if the VATRE doesn't pass. We obviously will have repercussions in our district, and I believe that's something that we've kind of talked about since the beginning of these conversations, is that, we're entering into a critical time where we need this VATRE, and not only us, but so many districts across the state are having to go out for these kind of elections. Can you talk about just the funding we're going to miss out on if the VATRE doesn't pass?
Sure. And the interesting thing, when I was a superintendent in my former district, when we would go talk to the state about, hey, we need more money, we don't have enough money, the first thing they would ask is, have you done a VATRE? Because that's the one area in the law where a district can tap into additional resources that the state doesn't control. It's already in the law. It just requires voter approval and taxpayer approval. So we understand that that can be a hurdle sometimes. So we try to get as much information out there as possible. How that formula works, and again, I'm talking a little bit apples and oranges, but if that doesn't pass, if the voters don't approve that, then we would go back to a compressed M&O tax rate. Now, compression is another difficult conversation to have. It's based on statewide taxable values and local taxable values. So as statewide values, as we all know, if you're a homeowner, your values are going up 8 or 10% every year, it seems. But at the state level, they have said, even if values go up 10% statewide, schools are only going to get 2.5% new money. And so how they manage that is by reducing the tax rate that the district can set, which is your M&O side. So if the vote is against, then that M&O rate will be 3 cents lower than this and generate less money. We also won't tap into that 71% of state money that we've talked about. And so the net result would actually be about $225,000 less money coming into the district. We'd actually, lose money. Some of that has to do, again, with compression. Some of it has to do with individual student needs. I mean, it's a complicated formula, but the net effect is if the 3 cents, if this vote fails and the district can't assign those new 3 pennies, then we'll receive less money in our budget.
And, we're in a time where $225,000 compared to like a whole district's budget doesn't seem like a ton. But whenever we're already having to cut programs and stretch our pennies that we have, and then every year it just seems like prices of things are going up, that $225,000 is critical for our district, and just to help everything run and to not have to lose such crucial programs that we have for our students. And that's something that I think Dr. Carter has emphasized really well with this whole conversation that we've had with the VATRE, is that we want to provide our Hereford ISD students with the best possible resources that we can, but we cannot continue to do that with just all the compressions and things like that. So we just really hope that our community takes that into consideration, because we either lose $200,000 or we gain $1.9 million. So, and there's a whole lot we can do with that $1.9 million.
It's a large difference. It's a big gap. And the thing that I know about Hereford and working with you guys for a couple of years, and really all of our Panhandle school districts, you guys are very frugal. You don't go out and buy frivolous things. And So yes, $220,000 on a school budget doesn't sound like a lot, but when the budget is already tight, it is a lot. And if you count the number of teachers and divide that number, that's the amount that we would be able to pay less for each one of those teachers. Those are difficult conversations to have.
Definitely. Well, and I think it will be good for our community to be able to see, how much this will cost them personally. So I know that we have a school tax calculator coming out super soon.
Correct.
So can you talk about that for a second?
Sure. We're putting together a calculator that any of your taxpayers can go into, whether they own a homestead or they don't have a homestead. Maybe they have rental properties, or they have a business, or they have other types of properties. There will be a tax calculator that will go up on the website. I'm not sure if it'll be on a VATRE website or the district, or maybe on both, but it'll be a QR code. So if they're looking at it, they can take their phone, snap on the QR code, and it will take them to a calculator where they can put in their taxable value. And then they'll let us know, hey, it's a homestead or not a homestead, or it's over 65, and it will take those exemptions off and tell them exactly to the penny what the tax impact will be for them on an annual basis and most likely a monthly basis as well.
And we've seen kind of some charts come from y'all, earlier this year about just how much it'll cost, and it really is pennies on a dollar. It is not that much difference in the overall taxes that you pay every year. And
Right.
Plus, they generate such a large amount for our districts. So we really hope that our community will go out and utilize that resource and just really see, that it won't cost you too much.
Well, and that's a great point. The other thing that will be on the ballot this fall are Propositions 11 and Proposition 13. Proposition 11 is on the ballot in order to extend the over 65 homestead exemption from $110,000 to $200,000. So if you're over 65, be sure and file that exemption the minute you turn 65. But if you have that exemption, then you'll be able to exempt $200,000 of your homestead values that won't be taxed on the school side. Proposition 13 allows for the average homestead holder who's under 65. Their homestead exemption will go from $100,000 to $140,000. So they'll be able to avoid $140,000 worth of taxable value on their properties. In Deaf Smith County, the average homestead, according to the CAD, is about $173,000. So after that $140,000 homestead exemption with the 3 cents, that will cost the average homestead owner about 85 cents a month, or $10.14 a year.
Yes. So take that into consideration whenever you're out there voting, because $10 for $1.9 million for your school district, we hope that, you just look at that a little bit and make your decision from there.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there anything else?
No, not that I can think of. The only thing I might say, because Dr. Carter's wanted us to talk about this a little bit, is because last year's M&O rate was compressed, this 3 cents won't actually show up on your new tax rolls as 3 cents. It's more like 2.14 cents. So the tax impact for homeowners or any taxpayer is actually going to be less than 3 cents. So the calculator, I think that we're going to put out there will actually show that 2.14, but we want to be transparent about the 3 cents.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes. So we just want to, remind our listeners to go out and vote, get registered to vote. The deadline to get registered to vote in the November election is Monday, October 6th. And then early voting begins Monday, October 20th, and election day is Tuesday, November 4th. So that's just around the corner, honestly. And so just keep those dates in mind. If you're not registered, just get that done quickly.
Absolutely. And the thing that I would say is get informed, become knowledgeable, and go vote. You'll go vote your conscience and what obviously we can't say vote yes or no, but we would encourage everyone to go vote. The district would love to see high voter turnout. We'd love to see educated voters. If there are questions, they have finance questions, they can reach out to the district and you can contact me. I think we're also going to have a frequently asked questions portion of the VATRE website. And so as we get questions in, we'll post responses to those. So citizens go in there and take a look, and hopefully all their questions will be answered before they go vote.
For sure. Well, Mr. Faltys, thank you for joining us today and just answering some of these questions that we've seen come up and providing a little bit more clarification, especially on that finance side of things. So we appreciate your time, and thank you for coming out.
I always love coming. Thank you.
Well, that concludes today's episode of HISD Unscripted. Remember, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts or watch us on Facebook and YouTube. We will be continuing these conversations with the VATRE, especially as we get closer to that election day. So just stay tuned in, stay informed, and we'll see you next time.